Hi again, everyone. Today I'm going to teach you how to make something near and dear to my heart. It's Zero from The Nightmare Before Christmas. I'm a big fan of Tim Burton's movies. I especially like The Nightmare Before Christmas, and Zero is easy and fun to make, and he's super cute. So I'll show you how to begin. You start out with a piece of gum paste, and you can make him pretty much any size you want. He's really very versatile like that. And in order to make his body, like the ghostly sheet part, just start cutting out some wavy lines in the shape of a triangle. The top first cut that I made is going to be the front of him. The longer two edges that I'm doing here, that's going to be his sides that go to his back ghost tail, I guess. So make sure you keep him nice and wiggly because he's a ripply ghost. And all I'm doing here is I'm just kind of smoothing out the edges a little bit. You can see it's a kind of a sharp cut because I left him a little thicker because I want him to be strong enough to have support. And I'm just rounding off the edges a little bit to make him a little smoother looking. So not a big deal, but these little details make a difference. Once you get him all rolled out, however shape you want it, I'm going to put him to the side. And his body underneath is going to be just a ball of gum paste, just a round ball. And I paint a little bit of water on it, and I guess I press it more into an oval than an actual ball. But a little bit of water, and then drape the front part over it where his neck and head are going to be. So only toward the front have the ball. Don't let it go too far along because he's got very little body. And we want him to have a long draping tail behind him. In order to cover up the ball, I realized I did it backwards. That's why I turned it around. You're welcome. In order to have the head and everything look good, you got to make sure to pinch him shut in the front because you don't want to see the ball necessarily that you just covered up. Now what I'm doing here is I'm moving him onto a piece of paper towel. This will allow me to shape him and get all of his little ripples into the cloth part of his body, and then be able to move it around later without losing any of those ripples or wrinkles in his sheet part of his body. And how I'm doing it, I use my finger, I use different size of my food markers, whatever you can think of to make it work, and you just press it on in. Make sure you get lots of wrinkles in him, as many as you can. I typically do one on each front foot, I guess, and then two on the tail, and try to get one or two on the sides. You can see what I'm doing right here. And you can already see it's starting to look kind of ripply, like he's floating through the wind. And they're going to sag a little bit if they don't hold their shape. You can put little pieces of paper towel to hold the little wrinkles up off the paper towel so they don't lose their shape too much. But typically just bunching him up and scrunching him up like I'm doing here will work without any issues. And you want to make sure you do this as fast as you can because that white gum paste, as you guys know, dries fast. And you don't want cracks or wrinkles if you can help it. That little tip there, I just snip it off because it's going to be in the way once we get his head in. I have a little piece of a lollipop stick. It's maybe an inch or two long. It's not too long. And that's going to be where his head goes. Again, I don't use toothpicks if I can avoid it. To make his head, all you need is a nice round ball. Take the outside edges of your hands and rub like half of it together and roll it and pinch it off as you go. So you make it into kind of like a teardrop shape. That's going to become his head and his muzzle. And you're going to have to shape up one side so that he'll have eye sockets later. And the bottom part of his jaw you can kind of leave smooth into the bottom of his head. And all I did to make his mouth, as you saw, was I took a blade and I just cut along the whole length. He's got a very long, thin nose. So mine is a little bit more blunt because he's going to go in the mail. I need him to actually make the journey. But this, if you're doing it for yourself or for home, you can make it longer and thinner as well. Make sure you get a nice curve. He is very happy. His nose and his bottom jaw are very hooked. They go upwards very sharply, so make sure you keep that in there. If you find that the jaw and mouth is closing, you can use little pieces of paper towel to just support it and hold it in shape. It doesn't take long to set, only maybe 10 minutes. All I'm doing here is making his eye sockets because his head is like a skull. I'm actually digging into the head and lifting up. I'm using the bottom of the spoon shaped part of the shaping tool, and I just lift it up, and that also gives him kind of like the skull eyebrows. And he's looking good. Now to fill in his eye sockets, I'm going to put a little bit of black inside each one using the back end of one of the pointing pokey tools. I don't know what it's called. But when I push it in and twist the stick so that it doesn't fill in the hole, but it kind of spreads out around inside the socket. So it still is an actual hole in his head. It's just now lined with black because you don't want to fill it in. He is a skull and it's just empty inside his head. So you want to keep that effect going. In order to make his ears, I just roll out a little bit of a thicker piece of gum paste. And with 2 small circles, I want to say maybe about a dime size is that cutter I'm using. Make 2 circles, and then I start pinching them into very long ovals, very long, very thin, and lay them next to each other. And then I take my rolling pin and flatten them out. Not too flat, otherwise you're not going to have any support, but flatten them out and roll them out so that they're longer and thin. And using the back of my thumbnails, I'm just going down the sides to make the edges smooth, because his ears are very much like a ribbon. They're very long and flowing and thin. So now I'm shaping them, giving them a little bit of a ripply kind of effect. And this will help them set a little bit and give me the idea of where I'm going with it too. In order to attach them to the head, just a little bit of water, just like always, a little bit of water on the gum paste. And seriously, just a little bit. If you put too much on, his ears will just slide right down his head, kind of like they want to do right there. I'm trying to push it back up. When you attach them, you got to be quick because they're going to start drooping. You can see the one is already kind of drooping. Don't be surprised if they fall off. I edit all those mistakes out so you guys only see the perfection of my work here. Get both those ears on. Yep, see, they're drooping. And I take a roll of paper towel and put it underneath the ears to hold them up. And again, this doesn't take long to set, maybe 10-15 minutes before those ears are good. Our last touch is going to be his little orange nose. A little dot of gum paste, push it right over that tip, sink it down onto his nose so it anchors it in place. And that's it. Let him dry. He's going to dry overnight, and you have an awesome Zero. He looks cool. He's rippling. His ears are up in the air like he's dancing in the wind, and he is ready to go. Like and subscribe if you like what you saw. Thanks.